Oh, happy Monday, everyone. You're in great company. I'm Rae Bonney, and with you for the next hour of my show today, as always, is all about people, recognising that it really is okay to not be okay. So today heralds the 16th day of October, just one day before my sister Leslie's 51st birthday. Happy birthday to my fabulous sister. She's not listening in fact, she never does, but I thought I'd give her a shout out anyway. Now, entertainment helps the world go around. It certainly does for me and my family. But are we really understanding the detrimental effects of working in the industry? Our world continues to remind us of how the fragile human condition under duress many of the times can actually break. And this stuff doesn't discriminate either. We've only have to remember the tragic loss of too many greats, Robin Williams, Michael Hutchence, Ernest Hemingway and Kurt Cobain, and the list goes on and on way, way too long. Now, there are some fabulous things going on that help support and reduce the negative impacts of working in this wonderful industry. For example, Entertainment Assist. They're a national health promotion charity striving for much needed change, commissioning research, advocating for workplace and educational transformation, and identifying support pathways for those in distress. Susan Cooper, she's the General Manager of Entertainment Assist, and is with me right now to talk about their dedication to raising awareness around mental health in the Australian entertainment industry. Good afternoon, Susan.
Good afternoon, Rae.
Oh, I said good morning, but we have
very
just
close to that.
We have just ticked over. Now, Susan phoned me about 30 minutes ago, and she said to me, she said, "Rae, I'm on Warrigal Road," and I knew what that meant. I knew that Susan might be a little way away. She said, "I'm going to arrive right on 12 o'clock." And I said, "That's okay." And I said, "But don't worry, Susan." She said, "I'm a bit stressed." I said, "Nothing's going to happen. You will get here. We will do a show." So there's just a little insight for people. If you're feeling a bit stressed today, don't worry, do what you can do and everything will turn out. Now, Susan, your headphones are also broken, so I suggest you take them right off because we won't be taking any calls today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's all good.
I just bought you a little bit of time there while you were working out what to do with those headphones, so
thank you.
Now, Susan, tell us, Entertainment Assist, why is it so important?
It's significant in that there are a number of benevolent societies in Australia that look after people that are in crisis, so particularly in the entertainment industry. So whether it be from the music point of view or arts benevolence funds or actors benevolent funds. And what was really interesting in starting out with a new entity was that we initially started as a crisis support service, but it became fairly evident very quickly that there was not really need for yet another crisis support service because there's plenty of those around.
Yes, I work with one of them, in fact.
There you go. What there wasn't was prevention. And we spend so much effort, not only in the entertainment industry, but from a societal aspect, looking at, trying to deal with people once they've jumped off the cliff. And that really was not about creating change. And it's one of those old adages in life, and we're funded, Entertainment Assist is funded by the Pratt Foundation, and they're very much about that sense of systemic change or generational change. And that really comes about from, instead of handing out fish, what about let's hand out fishing rods and teach people how to fish?
Great analogy.
Yeah, so it's about sort of helping people to actually look at ways to prevent getting to the point of jumping off the cliff. So Entertainment Assist's work is quite significant in that we're the first prevention type of entity, not only in Australia but worldwide, looking at prevention in relation to health and wellbeing in the entertainment industry.
Well, it is so prevalent, isn't it? And like you said, there are so many not-for-profits that are focusing on mental health, but quite often, as you said, from a crisis perspective and not from this organic preventative space. And, where do we start making change rather than just reacting?
It's actually really interesting. And I think that I kind of use the analogy back to the sort of 80s, sort of late 70s, early 80s, where we had the Norm Get Fit campaign.
Oh, yeah.
And we sort of learnt to sort of get our leg warmers out and let's get physical with Olivia Newton-John and all that kind of stuff. And we suddenly learnt then about our physical health. What's happening now is that we're now starting to understand and realise that not only do we have physical health, we also have mental health. And it's kind of going, well, what does that look like? What does that mean? And we're really in the infancy stages of that, the same way that we were back in the day when we learned about our physical health. And so it's a particularly crowded space at the moment, mental health, because there's a lot of unknown in relation to that. And we've probably approached it throughout time from a position of fear, which comes from lack of understanding, more than from going, okay, well, it's just a part of who we are and away we go. So of course, the way to create change then is to let's educate. And so, one of the key things, particularly in the entertainment industry, which is quite interesting, and the research project that Entertainment Assist undertook, which we released our findings at the end of last year, one of the really interesting things to me about the research project is that it showed that nowadays the majority of people in the entertainment industry are tertiary educated. So for a really disparate industry where you've got, some from dance through to, from acting and the tech stuff, film, and really neither side talks to each other. And, once upon a time you'd hear, like, I've left school or dropped out of school to go join a band or whatever it is.
Or the circus.
Or the circus for that matter. It's completely changed. And so when you look at a really disparate industry that has one primary funnel, and that's tertiary education, and whether that's through vocational learning or tertiary learning, it's a really good place to start, to go, okay, why don't we go into that sort of at that level and look at ways to actually equip people to be what I call, in inverted commas, match fit to work in the industry. Currently, the way that industry people are taught is that it's really about craft and technique, so that you've got to be the best at where you're at, and we've got some very elite institutions that teach. They do a great job with that. But people are really sort of come out the other end and they're told that if they don't get a job, they're a failure.
It's interesting that you use the term educate or teach rather than prepare. I think that, and we were speaking on the phone the other day about how are people in the industry prepared, given that the high levels of pressure, shortage of jobs, especially here in Australia, what to expect, and then how to prepare one to be sustainable within that space.
That's what I'm saying, match fit. It is that thing of being the preparedness, or whichever way you look at it, so that you don't come out the other end knowing that, one of the great challenges in particular the performing side of the industry, different to screen, but in the performing, live performance side of the industry, there's only 7% of people that are ever employed.
Yes.
And so the unemployment rate is high, and it's not likely to change because we have far more supply than demand. So in teaching people that that's what to expect, as opposed to if you don't get a job, then you're a failure, and setting people up to fail, knowing that it's very rare for them to actually get work, we've got half a chance of a mindset going in that I'm not a failure. I'm not just, I think one of the ways we teach at the moment is that someone is taught that I am the actor, I am the musician, and I'm nothing other than that. So people's identity is very much about the craft, as opposed to, okay, well, I might be an actor or a musician or or whatever, a dancer, but I'm also mother, brother, husband, father, provider, all sorts of things.
And these days very well sustained as an Uber driver.
Very well, there you go.
Thank God for Uber.
And I think that's the important thing, is that understanding and teaching people, and it is about teaching and preparing, that you actually have there is more to self and caring for self than just identifying with one sort of stereotype. And therefore, if you're not doing that, then you perceive yourself as a failure. And we have enough challenges in our industry, or in the entertainment industry, from a general public perception that, there are very few other industries where someone asks, what do you do? I say, I'm a musician. Oh, yeah, but what's your day job?
Yeah, what do you really do?
I'm an actor. Yeah, but what do you really do? What's your day job? And that's a very difficult thing to know, that you're
disparaging
trained.
as well.
And before you even get started, people are always saying, well, actually, you're not really performing to where it's at, because it's perceived that the industry, you're a loser in the industry.
Or what do you want? If you're not on TV, you're nobody.
Yeah.
As well. That's right. And that goes a long way into really impacting that human condition again. And I talk a lot, Susan, about, when we're talking about preparedness, the analogy of Nurofen. Now, anyone that's ever had a newborn child knows that you need to have that Nurofen for kids in the cupboard, because when kids get a temperature, it is only at 3 o'clock in the morning when everything is shut. And that makes that child and you very, very vulnerable unless you've got that protection there. So, people generally in life, change is happening all the time and things aren't working out as we planned. But if we have that infrastructure of safety in place, that's for us. We've got a better chance of managing through. better.
And it's understanding, it's the same sort of speech you'd give to someone that's going into retirement, that's had, always had known what to do, and then all of a sudden they're going, okay, go into retirement, and going, well, where's my purpose? And so it's understanding a sense of purpose. And
I think we're doing that better in Australia now in terms of transitioning into retirement, and organisations that are doing very, very good work years ahead of retirement, helping people and individuals.
Very much so, but it's using that same idea and looking at, if you've got an industry where you've got high unemployment, for example, like the entertainment industry, so it's actually, using the word preparedness, is preparing people to actually understand how to deal with that and how to create purpose. Now, the most simple of those things, and certainly what I teach, is that, it's create a list. Before you go to bed of a night, and whatever's on your list, it gives you purpose for the next day, whether it's buy milk, update your CV, go for a run, and on my list it actually always has write a list, so that I've got something I can cross off.
Is that on your list today? Write a list.
Write a list.
Have you done it yet?
No, I haven't yet, but it's that thing of actually understanding that there are simple things, that it doesn't have to be complicated, and I think we as humans, we tend to overcomplicate a lot of things, but by bringing that back, and I speak to a lot of particularly tertiary students who suddenly gone into university and have come from secondary school where it's very structured, and their first thing is, but we've got to look after ourselves now at uni. I'm going, well, I had to tell you, in the big wide world, it's even more than that. And so it's about understanding and creating your own sense of purpose.
Yes.
And that's really important, because that's unfortunately why things like certainly anxiety and depression start to develop, is when we start to lose that sense of purpose and where we fit in.
And it can happen so very quickly.
Oh, very much
as
so.
well. I've just returned from Tasmania. I spoke at a big event down there on behalf of Beyond Blue, and it was a very, very important event. And, I came away thinking, well, I'm glad that I'd prepared to keep myself mentally agile for that weekend, because you can come away and go, did I say enough? Did I do enough? Did I perform well? Because typically in this space, people won't give you feedback because of the stigma. It's very difficult for people to speak publicly about how they're feeling. So, I had that first-hand experience this weekend of going, I could have, even though I was here, I could have easily gone to there on the scale of feeling good and not feeling good at all. So knowing what that feels like. But do you think, Susan, and this might be going off in a tangent a little bit, but the psychological profile of people that do occupy the entertainment industry are more vulnerable?
Now, that's an interesting question. It's raised a lot. I would say that regardless of who you are, it's the very nature of the industry that causes the grief. And one of the things our research tells us that, yes, every single person within the entertainment industry has one common denominator, and that's passion. So regardless whether you're sort of wearing a tutu or a black T-shirt, we're all very, very passionate about what we do. As a part of being a part of the industry, we're all creative. And generally then, as a creative individual, you have sensitivity that attaches to that creativity, because it's really hard to be creative without being sensitive.
Yes.
So we have really passionate, sensitive, creative people in a really cutthroat environment, which is why there are challenges. Now, even those that are working, say, that come in and might not be as creative as others, it's still the challenge of, we have, I think, almost half of our workforce are shift workers, compared to 16% of the Australian population.
So much entertainment happens at night time.
Well, it does, yeah. So we've got we've got shift work, we've got sort of unsociable hours. There is certainly low pay. We've talked about, and in fact, I think 35% of all people in the industry earn less than $20,000 a year.
And you're only as good as your last paycheck in the entertainment industry as well.
Well, that's what puts food on the table.
Yes.
And it's not about saving up for the future. It's literally about surviving from day to day. You have a lot of isolation, so everything from touring through to just the challenges that are faced, because say if someone's in live performance is doing a show, that becomes the instantaneous family or the instant family, and then that they move on, and then all of a sudden you've got to create a new family, inverted commas again. So it's those things as far as, and there's a lot of lack of sleep, insomnia as a result of shift work. And then that sort of then has challenges as far as we find that people in our industry have not only challenges with family support and finding time for family, it's also finding time for peers within the industry. So all of those things add up to a recipe for disaster.
Bang, yep.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to actually, and I use the term again, match fit, to say, okay, we need to, at the front end, advise people that, yes, it is about craft, but it's also about that sense of whether it's resilience or whatever we want to call it, that there are going to be times when you're not working.
Yes.
There's going to be times where you are isolated. There's going to be these times. Take that as a given, not as an exception to the rule. They're the givens. What are some tips or some tricks that you can actually use to get you through those times? And whether it's, getting used to utilising the existing services that are out there, everything from the Beyond Blues to Lifeline to suicide callback service to all the apps that exist. And there's a raft of tools that don't need to be specific to the entertainment industry, because anxiety and depression are anxiety and depression.
Well, that's right.
For anyone. So as far
but
as
it does go back to the industry though, doesn't it? And the responsibility of the industry to take charge, and
it's a responsibility of the individual, and I think that's really important. So it starts with the individual, because unless we know how to take care of self, it doesn't matter what the industry does.
I'm talking about going back to the space where I'm in high school and doing drama and really love it, and then want to become an actress when I grow up, and the responsibility of the industry to educate the education system to better prepare me to know.
From that perspective, absolutely. And that's where we need to change
and
now.
that's where I see other industries that are doing it quite well. You look at law, even though we're still seeing astronomical outcomes there, much better preparedness. But you guys commissioned a study
yes, we did.
a few years ago, and I was really interested to read parts of that in collaboration with Vic Uni, that you only finalised the results at the end of last year.
We announced the final report in October last year.
What were the big things that you didn't expect that came out of that report?
It's funny, there was no new news for what it was worth, other than I think that talking about there being that sort of primary funnel of tertiary education, people being educated. The really big sort of numbers was that, we have a suicide rate, or an attempted suicide, that's double that of the Australian population. Our levels of moderate to severe anxiety are 10 times that of the general populace, and our levels of depression are 5 times that. So we have, and what's interesting also for as far as the 19 to 29-year-olds that have the highest level of anxiety in the industry, which makes a lot of sense from what we've been talking about.
Yes.
As far as the way they're prepped to go into the industry, and then suddenly realising, wow, they're on their own, and what do they do? We certainly, there was no new news as far as the fact of the rates of pay, so it's quite low.
Yes.
And I think that we have 63% of performers earn less than the national minimum wage of $34,000 a year. It's kind of one of those challenges. And then what's happened now, I think one of the good things that's happened is that in any circumstance where there is a challenge, and our research basically says our industry is in severe distress. And that we must move toward prevention to actually stop future occurrences of the quite challenging statistics that we're seeing. And so the positive side of all that, whilst it's kind of like everyone's going and reeling from the statistics, the plus side is these are now facts and figures are in black and white.
Yes.
And so it is the moral responsibility, and I use the word moral because I'm very, very fixed on this. It's the industries and the individuals within the industry. It's our moral responsibility now to create change.
Yes.
Because beforehand, we only had anecdotal evidence. And it was quite funny, a number of years ago, I was talking with government and sort of saying, look, there's all these challenges that go in our industry, and they're going, well, where's the statistics? I'm going, what do you mean? Like, we read about it in the paper all the time. And I sort of went away and went back to my office and started looking around, and I was absolutely flabbergasted that given the size of the industry, not only in Australia, so I mean now...
how many people do populate the industry?
It's interesting. So at the time of our research study, the Australian Bureau of Statistics said there were 42,000 people.
Yes.
In the Australian entertainment industry at that stage. Now, I think that's very, very low. And reason being because on census night, someone might not be working in the industry. They might be working as a security guard or doing some other work other than actually working in the industry. So, or
be confused whether they do fit in the industry as well, because there are so many different roles that support.
Very much so, yeah. So it's one of those sort of challenges. And then looking through, going, okay, I mean, our live performance industry is worth $1.5 billion a year. The screen side of things is about the same. If you look at it worldwide, it's massive. And there hadn't been any study done across the industry of the impact that the industry has on its people. And that was absolutely mind-blowing. A couple of studies have been done on contemporary music in, I think, the States and the UK. So Entertainment Assist set about this quite amazing research study across all sectors, and we had nearly 3,000 people respond. We collected about 500,000 data points, which represented about 30,000 years of industry experience.
Wow.
So I get goosebumps with this.
Yes.
And the reason I get goosebumps is because the body of work that we have as far as these stats now, it's real. And so when I say the positive side of that is we can move forward from here. We've got that now. And so in any start of creating change, you've got to identify the problem. And so now we've identified the problem, we've got the problem, and now it's about creating and working towards the solution.
Mm. It's pretty powerful, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially, as you said, when it's in black and white. And I every day are listening to stories and stories upon stories, and so much of this does not get reflected in statistics. So we're really only seeing a little tip of what is actually going on.
Oh, very much so.
You know, especially when you look at suicide, you know, of every day, every minute, another man tries to kill himself, for example, and, you know, 18 of those don't die but are still in much need of
very
support.
much so. Absolutely.
And, you know, there are so many other examples of, and I know suicide is at the very, very pointy end because there is so much more in the lead up to that. You know, it's not just about suicide, it's how people are suffering through life that leads to suicide or leads to self-harm or leads to, you know, things like substance abuse. And, you know, one could say that those things are a form of suicide, even though they're a slow
death.
It's very deliberate. And so are they being recorded in statistics? And when I was saying to you before, often I just don't focus on the statistics but look at the reality to say where can we make change there, and having discussions like this and having people listening to what we're talking about.
It's talking about, and I think that's the key,
Yes.
right? It's actually having the conversation, and
Yes.
that's the big key, is that for so long we've actually not talked about the sense of mental health because we're through fear, through lack of understanding,
Yes.
and the stigma that we've seen that, you know, I mean, the scary things we'd see in the old days of having lobotomies and scary things shoved in our heads and God knows what else. And
Yes.
and so that's the perception of fear. We don't want anyone to think that we're different.
Yes.
And yet, you know, if we suddenly break an arm or do something that's very physical and people can see it and they go, oh, okay, we know how to deal with that.
That's
It's all
right.
simple. But this stuff's really quite tricky.
That's right. A mental health injury, you're crazy, but, you know, you break your arm doing backflips on a motorbike and you're cool.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's pretty irresponsible.
Absolutely.
You know? So I agree, the stigma is one of the biggest killers. And in a lot of industries, we look at high-performing people who are high-functioning and you can't see it. And you see it a lot in your industry because of the glitz and the glamour that you can't see because, you know, Robin Williams is a perfect example of people saying, didn't see that coming. Yeah, there were so many signs.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
And it's also, there's a lot of masks
Yes.
within the entertainment industry, and that's self-preservation because there's a lot of going. I mean, unfortunately, when, you know, industry people get together, it's going, oh, what are you working on now? And so 9 times out of 10 people aren't working on anything because of the unemployment, but they'll make something up or do whatever it is and go, oh, I've got this gig coming up, or I'm working on my next this or my other. So
I was in the Sullivans in 1972.
yeah, well,
you know, they're
there
still
you
playing
go.
reruns, so I'm still in it.
That's right. So it's that sense of not being true to self a lot of the
Yes.
time. So it's just inbred.
Yes.
And so when it comes to then talking about how you feel, what's really challenging with that, and particularly if you're, this is one of the really big problems within our industry, is that there's always going to be 100+ people standing behind you who can do your job.
Yes.
Very different to say, and I was talking to someone recently about this, say, let's look at elite sport. And so, you know, so the AFL and yes, they have transitioning programs, and we're seeing a lot more footballers coming out and talking about mental health issues, which is great. So that's really great as far as inspiring the public to start talking about that.
Does it really? And I'm just going to interrupt you there because we talk a lot about AFL, especially because there's been so many plays that have come out, but very much in the protection of the media and very much in the protection of their clubs. And, you know, a lot of the people that I am dealing with are, you know, men in particular who don't have a job, have 5 kids, who can't even buy groceries. They cannot relate to that. It's not achievable for them to go, well, I can now speak out about how I'm feeling because it doesn't resonate in different settings.
Well,
like it
no,
does.
and the thing is, people forget the AFL is an employer.
Yes.
So it's a very different scenario. So if you'd like take, say, the entertainment industry, for example, there is no overriding employer in the entertainment industry or body, which is why it's very difficult to have that support structure for someone to go, hey, it's okay for me to talk. So that's what's continuing with, is that we're seeing these AFL players speak out, which is wonderful, but they're able to do that because they've got the support structure of the employer who has a responsibility as far as their health and also their transitioning.
But also the spin on it as well, that's cool.
Oh,
It makes it sexy, but only sexy for that space.
On the plus side, though, it's a start.
Oh,
and
yes.
And I think that we need to look at those things going, it's quite challenging for anyone to say, hey, I'm 3 parts of a sandwich, that something's not quite right.
Well, our very good friend David Mann said it perfectly to me a few months ago. He said, Rae, with the stigma thing, there are a lot of places like, our AFL people who now can speak out and get the right support. But in the entertainment industry, if one of our key entertainers turns up at Box Hill A&E, having an anxiety episode, that's not cool. That gets all over the papers.
That's right.
And they're not safe.
They're not safe at
and
all.
their jobs aren't safe. And quite often they'll be very judged and discriminated against.
And that's where it's very difficult to get people from the industry, the entertainment industry, to speak out from this regard, because it is the risk that, and I've had, certainly had producers say quite openly that if there was 2 performers standing in front of them, both of which equally capable of doing the job, one of which known to have some mental health issues, they would take the other person.
Reliability.
Yeah, and
money.
that's because it's there is so much choice. I mean, and again, it's no slight. That sounds awful, but it's not really a slight on the producer because there's so much supply. We have we've talked about the high unemployment rate, and there's always going to be, I'd say, 100 plus people standing behind you wanting to do your job, which makes it particularly challenging.
But also probably on another side of things, like being quite edgy in that industry, there's a certain excitement that goes along with that for a moment to the competitiveness and...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like I've got to say, the industry is fiercely competitive, dear God.
Yes.
But what's really interesting about that, though, so we spoke earlier, I spoke about sort of passion, creativity and sensitivity, and working in a very cutthroat industry, so it is competitive and all the things that go with it. One of the other really kind of beautiful things that our research taught us, that despite all of the challenges, people in the industry really want to help each other but just don't know how. And so that is the whole premise of the solution, and what Entertainment Assist is working towards, using that's again, I'm getting goosebumps again. That's about that sense of peer-to-peer support.
Yes.
And so we've started off looking at developing a product called Intermission Mental Health Training, which we've done in conjunction with Black Dog Institute. And developed a tailored program for the entertainment industry so people can learn to understand and identify what anxiety and depression looks like, and can then also learn how to have the mental health conversation. So we teach people how to role play and have the mental health conversation. And that's been extraordinarily successful, where it's just that understanding of going, oh, it's okay. I know ways I can then start to talk about it, and it's okay to talk about it. And then building on from a much bigger perspective and sort of saying, okay, if it is about peer-to-peer support, then it's also that sense of collaboration. And last Tuesday on World Mental Health Day, Entertainment Assist announced the formation of the Australian Alliance for Wellness in Entertainment.
And we're going to come right up to that in the next break. That's what we're going to be talking about next. So I wanted to save that because there's so much in that and so many questions that I have, and it's such a fabulous initiative that certainly builds a massive infrastructure under what you're doing to give credibility and inclusion. And I wanted to just touch on the peer-to-peer support thing, because I know in the work that I do across all industries, it's one of the most powerful support mechanisms that you can bring into your organisation, is that peer-to-peer support.
Oh, absolutely. We've seen that with Are You OK Day, and I think that's the same as the thing. It's just asking people, are they okay? And it's one of the sort of things that, and certainly what we teach with our intermission mental health training, is that looking for signs, because anxiety and depression manifest themselves very physically.
Yes.
And that's through changes of behaviour. And so if someone has normally been on time and all of a sudden they're running late, or someone's normally nice and all of a sudden they're itchy, and scratchy as far as being around, they're fair signs that there's a mental health issue going on.
Great opportunity to say, hey, I've just noticed a change, not, oh my God, you look awful today.
And that's exactly right. And that's how to approach it,
Yes.
is actually to say, notice a change.
Yes.
Are you okay? You know, do you want to have a talk? You know, or, you know, is that something you want to talk about? And one of the key things is that people forget that, you know, our GP is there to help us with these sorts of things because, and I think it's still a little known fact that anxiety and depression are chemical imbalances that are medically treatable. So they are treatable illnesses. Fact of life, that's it. And we forget that or we don't know it. So it's a matter of, you know, and it's something that I'm on a mental health plan, and it's a matter of going to a GP if you are experiencing sort of issues with anxiety and depression. And the mental health plan is actually quite straightforward, where a GP just basically writes out a bunch of stuff and you get a referral to a psychologist, and you'll get up to 10 sessions in a year. That is Medicare, compensation through Medicare, so it makes it much more affordable to be able to do that. And it's funny, years ago I was picked up, I was working in a really stressful environment, working 80 hours a week, running a performing arts centre and wanting to be all things to all people, and my chiropractor, funnily enough, picked up the changes in me. And he said, you need to start talking to someone about some stuff. And I went, what the? And I got to the stage I actually didn't want to be here, full stop, like here at all.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty dark place. And I'm very grateful that there was someone who just, you know, going and getting a bad back looked after, but he was very much and very attuned to me. And that really, I got to say, actually saved my life, because by just going and talking, because I was always there to solve everyone else's problems. And so it's one of those kind of things that you then carry everything and then realise, actually, no. And it had manifested in me very much so because I almost couldn't move. So the stress was so full on and what I was causing to myself. So it's...
we don't really realise how... I mean, I do, but the physical and mental are so inextricably entwined.
Oh, absolutely.
And, you know, the feeling of you being cared for by your chiropractor, that somebody cared enough to say, I've noticed something different. And that can be your entree into great conversation.
That's right. And then suggested go to a GP. I said, I don't know where to go, and suggested, you know, recommended someone. And then, you know, from there they recommended somebody else. And so the path kind of happened. But one of the things I will say is that it's sort of, particularly with counselling, it's like a marriage. So if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. And it's the same way I was talking to a young man, you know, saying it's sort of like you wouldn't go out with a girl if you didn't really like her. You know, I said it's exactly the same kind of thing. You've got to really like the person and feel comfortable
and
where
it's not
you can
rude
talk.
to not return.
If
you don't have that connection. A lot of people, I mean, I'm a therapist myself, and people come to me and say, well, I went for 10 sessions and then I gave up. You know, go for one.
Yeah.
You know, if the chemistry isn't
not
there, it's
it's
not
just
there
like
at all.
dating. It's exactly the same.
Yes.
You know, it's feeling that comfortable so that you can chat.
Yeah.
And the power of just being able to talk is magnificent.
Absolutely. And before we go to the break, just to remind people that, you know, when you are in a conversation, really resist that temptation to tell somebody what to do, what they need to do, what they should do. Rather, I believe you. That's a really, really cool one, because so often, I mean, I live with chronic depression and anxiety, but I always look happy. I'm always colourful, so people won't believe me. Not you. I mean the other ones, Rae. I am the other ones. But it's very, very difficult for me to talk to people about how I'm feeling because I'm not believed. But when people say, yeah, I believe you, that's crap, it makes me feel a million times better all of a sudden. So I usually have a segue.
I feel like I was born to run.
Or crawl, whatever that might be. Now, you did give us a little bit of an insight before we went to a break about the AAWE, which is the Australian Alliance for Wellness in Entertainment. And they're a cross-sector peer-to-peer initiative of Entertainment Assist. Tell us.
It's a pretty exciting thing. So in work, I said, in working towards change, we've identified the problems within our industry through some research. And as we've said, those problems within our industry need to be owned by every single person within the industry, be it as an individual. And I think that stems from Entertainment Assist probably works across three pillars, one of which is to teach people, to educate people to look after and take care of self, to support their peers, and for industry employers to be actively engaged in the mental health and wellbeing of industry employees. So with that in mind, and looking at an industry that is, you know, is actually quite small in the scheme of life and the universe. But because we've got so many disparate areas, no one talks to anybody else, which is quite a challenge. And so you won't get, certainly screen talking to music and music talking to dance and to screen at a stage. And so as far as moving forward and looking at, okay, we've got a small industry, we certainly are very under-resourced financially within the industry. There is a want to create change, so that this research that we released, everyone's sort of going, wow, we've got to do something about that, great. And so there's initiatives kind of popping up all over the place. But unless there was a coordinated approach or a collaborative approach to that, either we'd end up knocking each other out on the way through. So Entertainment Assist has worked and approached sort of the main players within the entertainment industry, and looked at forming the Australian Alliance for Wellness and Entertainment. And our founding members, and the list is, and it's probably worth me actually just going through those if I may. Because
yeah, absolutely.
I think it's important that those in the industry realise and acknowledge that they are being represented at the ground level here. And so the key founding members, other than Entertainment Assist, of course, is the Arts Wellbeing Collective, and that's an organisation that's sprung up out of Arts Centre Melbourne, which is a whole lot of industry employers that have come together in theatre predominantly to actually look at wellbeing. Ausdance, so representing dancers. We have ASPA, which is the Australian Society for Performing Arts Healthcare.
I was interested to see
and they're a fantastic organisation that, and I encourage actually anyone in the industry to hop onto their website if they're looking for a chiro or a mental health professional or a speech pathologist or anyone to actually do with their craft in entertainment. So these are health professionals that are actually specialising in performing arts healthcare, which is fantastic. The change makers will be the Australian Council of Deans and Directors of Creative Arts. So we've got the educators involved, and that's really important because we really won't create our systemic change unless we change the way we educate at the front end. Live Performance Australia and Live Performance Australia are a peak industry body for live performance. We have the Union, Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance, Music Australia, Screen Producers Australia, and our mental health partner is Every Mind. They were formerly known as the Hunter Institute for Mental Health. They've just changed their name as of last Monday. And Every Mind are quite amazing in that they have been funded through, in the last budget, Commonwealth budget, with Black Dog Institute to develop a prevention hub or a research centre for excellence in anxiety and depression. So we've gone along to Every Mind and said, hello, we've got a body of research, we've got an industry that's in distress. And so it's fitted in really well as part of the work that they're doing to actually do further research with us now as far as identifying ways we can create solutions. So
because they actually go out into the field and train, don't they?
They do a raft of things, and that's what's actually really quite interesting and why they were a perfect fit for us. They've actually developed curriculum. They also developed the Mind framework, which is for media to actually, as a guidelines for media and television and film, to actually how suicide's portrayed.
Yes.
So they've sort of been involved in our industry roundabout ways for quite a period of time. And it's also what's really important from our perspective is that we sort of we've got this body of research. We've now, asking every member of the industry to actually join the Wellness Alliance and commit to wellness and entertainment. So as part of joining OR or the Wellness Alliance is actually almost taking a pledge. So we have a series of what we've called value statements.
Statement of value,
Yeah, a statement of values.
Well, I joined the other day and I did all of that. And, I had the question in my head that, I'm not part of the entertainment industry. I'm at the moment because I'm with you. Yeah. But so what about for people like me? Why would it be important for me to join, and what could I expect to learn or add value to?
Well, you are in the entertainment industry because you're talking about it. So you're actually on air, and so you do absolutely fit as part of the entertainment industry. You are actually in the entertainment industry. Welcome, hello, good on you.
I forgot.
And so that is about, if you're committing to wellness, it's about wellness then for yourself as an individual. It's about wellness to actually say, I'm going to look out for my peers. And if you're an employer, it's obviously looking out for your employees.
No, I think that's really important and we talked about peer-to-peer support before and looking out for others, but the entertainment industry again is one of those rare ones where there's so much transient stuff going on, is that, you could be turning up for one day somewhere or half a day somewhere. So, and then you talked before about sometimes, merging those families and then those families break apart. So, how difficult is it to capture these people in one space and provide things like training and infrastructure for health?
It's a long move forward. So the first one we've got to do is actually identify what currently exists. So through the Wellness Alliance, I'm about to sort of do a roadshow around the country where we're inviting industry professionals to come and contribute to a forum where we find out what currently exists. I mean, so there might be employers that have some HR initiatives that not everyone else knows about that are worth sharing. It's also looking at, other than what exists, it's going, and that could be a meetup. And I know that there are some industry meetups where people just get together for a coffee, just to chat and just feel connected, and that's really important. But it's also then going, okay, what do we need? So it's sort of this big gap analysis to go, okay, if we are looking through a prevention first lens, and so the whole purpose of the this Australian Alliance for Wellness and Entertainment is to actually develop a prevention first framework for mental health in the entertainment industry. So that as opposed to coming from crisis, all that kind of stuff, we start looking through a prevention first lens. So what then, if we're looking through that prevention first lens, what do we need to do or implement or create or have that will assist that sense of prevention first? And then from that, work out, actually ask the industry then, what are the most pressing priorities? Because, I mean, we're a little organisation doing really, really big work, and so you want to actually know that you are making impact and having impact and creating change. So the way to do that, of course, is identifying what's the big ticket item that we need to actually then bang on the door of the Commonwealth and say, hang on, here we go, we've done some research here, so it's evidence-based, got a problem. Also got the industry now actually talking with each other, which is unheard of, not only in Australia but the rest of the world. Another world first for you, dear government, thank you very much. We're also now doing another piece of research where we're actually asking the industry, what currently exists, what are the gaps, what's needed, and what are the priorities. We've now got the answers for that, and so we come then set with a plan. And I think that becomes a very strong statement as opposed to, oh gosh, we need help, and then people go, how, what, why?
Yes.
So it's so it's quite exciting. So between now and till the end of the year, these forums will be occurring in each state of Australia, and I'll be zipping around. And part of that's a 2-hour forum where for the first hour I will sort of provide an overview of where the industry is at, talk to our research results, give an overview of what anxiety and depression actually looks like, and talk to some ways that you can actually help self and others, and then move into a peer sector, sort of a sector-based peer-to-peer kind of discussion where people can actually go, okay, and start drilling down to what's needed. And we get the post-it notes happening and the butcher's paper happening and all the texters
love
and
a bit of butcher's paper
and all that stuff happening.
And on that anxiety and depression, just to remind listeners that stress is a natural response to life, and so is sadness. Don't confuse them with anxiety and depression. And you talked before about, anxiety and depression being a clinical, medical thing that can respond very well to all kinds of things, medicine, environment, whatever that might be, whatever works for you. It's different for everyone. And whilst there are typical signs and symptoms, it is different. Comorbid depression and anxiety, when I get the two together, I look very different to when I'm just experiencing one or the other. And it's
really interesting that you say that. I think that because the World Health Organization defines, mental health or positive mental health as being able to deal with the day-to-day stressors of life.
Yes.
Okay. So when we talk, and certainly in the information sessions that we run, or the training that intermission mental health training that we run, we'll talk about, well, what does that look like? Now, in the entertainment industry, an everyday stressor of life is, dear God, it could be running 24 hours a day, getting ready for a show, and you're sort of bumping in and you're setting up and doing all sorts of crazy things, and it is absolutely full on adrenaline pumping, crazy, crazy stuff. The everyday stressor of life for a paramedic is facing road trauma. And they're equipped to deal with that because, that's how they train and equip themselves. And it's interesting, and I'll use the analogy that apparently one of the most stressful things in life that people can do is public speaking. Now, people in our industry, in the entertainment industry, can do that generally without fear. It's great.
Yes.
But they can't attend road trauma, and nor can a paramedic stand up and do public speaking.
Yes.
So our stressors are completely different, and you're quite correct from that perspective. And it's not about sort of measuring yourself against somebody else. It's measuring yourself against you.
That's a very dangerous thing to do, because then our expectations are so much, much higher.
Yeah.
But on that, Susan, we've got about 7 minutes to go of the show before we hear from the divine Ken Lyons on his health program. But I do have a question for you. Mm-hmm. What does it feel like being you today?
Feel it being me today. Wow. I feel pretty proud to be me today, actually, and that's a pretty big thing to say. I was tasked with, well, I feel I was tasked with an enormous challenge. I ran solo in Entertainment Assist for many years, working part-time, funded by the Pratt Foundation. I was asked to to take on this particular job, and so I always felt this incredible responsibility that it was up to me personally to create this enormous change in an industry that is kind of tricky, actually.
Very.
Very tricky. And I've got to say, it's the hardest gig I've ever been through. It personally has cost me along the way as far as relationships and various things, because I feel this quite incredible responsibility and pressure, not put on by anybody other than myself, but because I feel I was tasked to do a job, and I like to do things that I say I'm going to do. So when our research was released, the final report was released last year, and the industry really reacted to it as far as like wow, we've got to do something about that. It was like this huge weight. It's kind of lifted off my shoulders. Like I've done that part of the job. And now, that the industry, I'll goosebump moment again for me here, but now that the industry has stepped up and said we're prepared to work together, it's just unheard of, because we're a funny lot, particularly at the top end. There is a lot of power and ego and money and all that kind of stuff, and people do incredible work. It's quite wonderful, but there is that, and it's just truly wonderful that as an industry we're actually saying, you know what, we care about our people and wellness and entertainment is really important and we're prepared to commit to that. So yeah, today I'm feeling pretty proud about all of that.
What a fabulous answer. Now think about it, people. I could have said to Susan, "How you going, mate?" And you would have gone, "Yeah, good."
Yeah, good.
That's as far as the conversation would have gone. But do try it. It's tried and tested by me. What does it feel like being you today actually requires an answer and allows a person a whole range of space to talk about what it feels like, not what is it. Are you okay? Yeah, good. You must be really stressed, Susan, because you were running late in the car. Like maybe not. Think about how we're addressing each other. And
it's learning to those open-ended questions, which are
yes.
really tricky, but it is...
And awkward.
That's right, and that's one of the things actually we try to teach people through our intermission mental health training,
yes.
is to actually ask the open-ended questions, so you're
yes.
not getting the I'm fine or the yes or the no answers.
Yes.
And it is a learned thing that I still struggle with it myself, I've got to say, but it's so well worth knowing that, and that was a great example of an open-ended question where I had to respond without the yes or the no.
Well, and I listened, not interrupting you, allowing that person the space and the dignity and the pride to be able to express how it's feeling. You as a recipient don't have to have any words at all, but creating that environment where that person feels cared for, not me going, I care, rather than creating that environment of safety and security and provision of dignity is incredibly important. And I think that goes a long way in, getting a person to the next stage of safety.
Absolutely. And just with that, if people would like to know more about sort of the work that Entertainment Assist has been doing, and certainly learn more about the Australian Alliance for Wellness and Entertainment, I encourage people to visit entertainmentassist.org.au. And if you go entertainmentassist.org.au/wellness, you'll head straight to the Wellness Alliance part of the website, where you can actually join the Wellness Alliance and commit to wellness in entertainment.
Fantastic. It's been such a thrill to have you on today, because I became engaged with Entertainment Assist when David Mann did tell me about it. I think it must have been at the beginning of this year or late last year when you released
and he is our chairman.
He's your chairman, yes, right. And you're very lucky to have him. I think he sits on just about every board in Australia. Don't know how he gets across it, but I dare say I know he takes care of his mental health by hanging around with cool people like you and me, because we make him feel good.
That's very sweet.
Anyone listening who might want to have a discussion around how they're feeling, please don't hesitate. Contact Lifeline 131114. Suicide callback service 1300 659 467, and emergency services 000. If you're really worried about somebody, call 000. You're not going to get into trouble if the person doesn't end up killing themselves. you're probably helping circumventing something much more sinister. So, Susan, you guys aren't still doing work in the crisis?
Not at all. No,
Okay.
no, it's all prevention. Yeah, but you mentioned suicide callback service.
Yes.
I've got to say, it's one of the most fantastic services that people probably don't know as much about as they should.
It's amazing.
It's not only for those that have suicidal thoughts, it's also for those that are either bereaved through suicide or for those that are in touch with someone that has expressed suicidal thoughts.
Yes.
And certainly in my field, I get people contacting me through social media and telling me about their challenges and their thoughts. And I have certainly used suicide callback service to just unload, because you feel like there's enormous responsibility on your shoulders as someone talks about it. So I commend that to you.
It's more than just a callback service. They've got so many amazing resources. So thank you for mentioning that, Susan. That's really powerful. But I'm Rae Bonney, and I've been chatting with the divine Susan Cooper. She's General Manager of Entertainment Assist. They're a national health promotion charity striving for much needed change in the industry. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week.